Every so often, we hear about a passionate group of people rallying together to remake an old game using a modern engine, not for profit, but out of sheer love. Unfortunately, more often than not, what begins as an exciting prospect usually ends up with a project's cancellation. Nintendo practically has a no fan games policy, shooting them down the second they get a whiff of one, and we have seen projects like fan remakes of Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear Solid gain some traction before they were shut down by Konami. The most recent fan remake to meet a similar fate is a mod called the Capital Wasteland Project, or as it's more commonly known, Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. As the less official name implies, this is a mod that aims to recreate Fallout 3 using Fallout 4's updated creation engine. This is a project that began early last year and had made significant headway with each passing month prior to its recent cancellation. As for why Capital Wasteland was cancelled, project lead Nathan, aka NafNaf95, released the following statement to explain the situation. He said, quote, "Today I have some sad news for you, the community. Recently we have communicated with Bethesda regarding our planned method to implement the voice acting and other audio from Fallout 3 into the Capital Wasteland. During this conversation, it became clear our planned approach would raise some serious red flags that we had unfortunately not foreseen. This contact resulted in us changing our methods to attempt to continue working. After some thought, it appears there's no fully legal way for us to continue developing the Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 portion of the Capital Wasteland. Projects like these have always existed in a gray area of the law, but we as a team value our connections with many members of the amazing dev team that is Bethesda Game Studios. To reinforce my point, the law around this have not changed. If we were to continue and complete Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, legally, I, as the project lead, would most probably be liable for any acts of piracy and copyright infringement resulting from the project's release. Myself and the Road to Liberty team do not wish to stain the working relationships with other members of the community and Bethesda. At first, we were very reluctant to halt work and decided to start looking into re-recording all the voice acting. We quickly realized we would have to replace iconic voices like Liam Neeson, Malcolm McDowell, Ron Perlman, and of course, the phenomenal Eric Todd Dellums. Without some of these voices, Fallout 3 loses its charm, and personally, I can't bring myself to replace them. If at any point in the future it becomes fully legal for us to continue working with the blessing of Bethesda and ZeniMax, we will. I would like to add that this decision was not taken lightly, and it pains many people on my team, including myself, to have to halt development of the Fallout 3 story. I personally would like to apologize to the many members of the community that love Fallout 3 as much as I do. I'm sorry we couldn't accomplish our dream. Nathan." Now, to further flesh out the circumstances behind the project's cancellation, website Kotaku reached out to Nathan and got a few additional statements out of him. He began by saying that, quote, "Bethesda didn't technically shut us down, but a few members of the staff heavily hinted at our methods being illegal. The main reason for this has to do with Nathan's plans for voiced characters in his project. He decided he was going to take original performances from actors involved in Fallout 3 and put them into his project. And because the voice recordings from the likes of Liam Neeson and Malcolm McDowell are licensed by Bethesda rather than being outright owned by them, doing so would have put the project in great legal risk. Nathan even consulted with a lawyer for further confirmation, and the lawyer apparently backed Bethesda's stance. According to Nathan, quote, "Basically everything we were doing was sketchy as hell. With risks of the project being shut down and facing legal issues being so likely, and with the project apparently still being over 2 years of work away from completion, Nathan decided that it was best to not pursue this project further. It seems as though ultimately it had less to do with Bethesda deciding the fate of the project and more to do with the overall legality surrounding the situation in terms of copyright laws, specifically where licensed actors' performances are concerned. Now, it is worth noting that the Capital Wasteland isn't the only Bethesda mod of its kind. Other similar projects include Skywind and Skyblivion, which aim to recreate Morrowind and Oblivion into Skyrim's game engine. One has to wonder whether the teams behind these projects will engage in similar discussions with Bethesda sooner rather than later. But unlike Capital Wasteland, the heads of these projects will actually be going out of their way to re-record all of the dialogue with fan voice acting, reducing legal risk significantly. Now, Capital Wasteland's team could decide to go this route as well, but according to Nathan's statement, he found the original performances to be a great enough loss that he felt he couldn't bring himself to replace them. As project lead, that is certainly his decision to make, even if it might disappoint the thousands who are looking forward to this ambitious mod. But hey, at the very least, I am glad that there was a proper exchange between the Capital Wasteland devs and Bethesda devs, that it didn't devolve into a whole confrontational legal debacle. From what Nathan said, it seems as though Bethesda provided less of a threat and more of a heads up about some of the legalities that were even outside the studio's own control. Whereas an entity like Nintendo is infamous for resorting to shutting down these types of fan projects with full copyright takedowns, Bethesda at least had the courtesy to reach out and try to explore some options with these folks from what I'm hearing. Nathan also knew going into this that there was always some risk and legal gray areas involved with pursuing a project of this nature. Not to mention that owners of an IP or license do have the right to try and protect it. I may not always agree with Nintendo's aggressive methods in shutting down fan projects, but I do understand why they had to shut down stuff like the fan Metroid 2 remake. It turned out that Nintendo had been working on their own Metroid 2 remake for the 3DS, and they couldn't have a fan project of their IP compete against their own product. Bethesda's definitely much less strict about that stuff, especially since the modding community is such a vital part of the company. But once the licensed original voice recordings became involved, I think that at that point, the studio had no choice but to warn Nathan and his team that what they were doing could very well be illegal and that they could be opening themselves up to lawsuits and the like. So all in all, this is an unfortunate situation, but I think Bethesda did handle things the best way they could given the circumstances. These are just one man's thoughts and opinions anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on all of this in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. It is completely optional, but donating even as little as $1 a month will go a long way in helping this channel grow. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.